When Bitcoin enters price discovery, it usually reaches a new resistance level. This can commonly be marked by the Fibonacci levels, which is where you anchor the pullback price to the current price, and it extrapolates prices going forward, which can paint a path towards potential profit taking. You can see at 124k, that's when the price peaked for a local top and started to retrace. Between 124 to 142k could be a great opportunity to start to scale back and take some profit. If the markets continue to get very risk on and interest rates reduce dramatically as inflation ticks down because of producer prices getting cheaper, if large speculators stay short, which is never a top signal, options volume increases, especially into October and November, which is bullish momentum. Analysts predicting higher earnings for the indexes. This signals a strong support for the current S&P to continue to climb higher. With 14 big earnings to be reported this week, this could lead to a Bitcoin price target of between 161,000 to 178,000. These are levels where you could consider, if you have got a position in Bitcoin, to start to scale back and to consider whether you would like to rotate into something different. But this video isn't about profit taking, it's about understanding the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, understanding the intrinsic value of this network, so that when there is a major pullback, this is a potential opportunity to consider positioning yourself for any potential future growth. The video I'm about to show was a breakdown of the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. It was the moment everything clicked for me. It was the most prosaic moment for me where I decided this is a chance for me to start to create some content and share what I've understood and share how it's made me think about understanding portfolio growth, understanding an asset, understanding how to store your value. So I hope, again, that this video, the last one that I'm going to show of the past, adds some value, because I feel it's just as relevant today as when I first made it. If anything, it's probably more relevant now, because I feel like this asset class is about to absorb the art and the collectibles, the gold, the bonds, the cash, the real estate market, and then also just start to take a percentage of all of these different asset classes. So I hope that this adds value. If it does, like, comment, subscribe. The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. In this book, he quotes that Bitcoin automates the modern day functions of a central bank by making them initially immutable, predictable, by programming them into decentralized code amongst thousands of network members, known as nodes, none of who can alter the code without consent of the rest. Could this be relevant? I'm going to take you through some interesting insights from this book. What is salability? Primitive forms of money, metals, emperors of Rome, gold standard, Keynesian Austrian economics, relevance of Bitcoin, negatives of Bitcoin, central banks. Salability. Salability is money. Salability is defined as the ease at which a good can be sold on the market whenever its holder desires, with the least loss in its price. It's split into three different categories. You have scales. How easy is that money to divide for small transactions and high transactions? Space. How easy is it to transport and move that money around a society, even across a border? Time. Is it immune to deterioration and rot and corrosion? Let me take you through the primitive forms of money. Let's start off with the society called Yap. The Yapese people used these rye stones that weren't native to their island. They were found on a neighbouring island. They were laborious to extract from the island over to Yap. It required a lot of work. They were centrally stored in a prominent part of Yap, where the owner would declare payment publicly. This would act as a medium of exchange within the society for decades, until a sailor shipwrecked on the island called O'Keefe saw the potential in the coconuts that they had there being sold to oil producers. He was able, through his superior shipping ability, to extort these stones from the neighbouring island easily and cheaply, bring them over to Yap, where he tried to sell them. However, the chieftain, aware of this potential problem, he said anyone who accepts the stones from O'Keefe, it will act as illegal tender. However, the people of Yap thought these stones are just the same as the stones that we've used for many years. So why would we change? Why would they need to be changed? As soon as they accepted these stones from O'Keefe, there was a flood of rye stones that were once scarce into this society. It led to the collapse of this medium of exchange. Let's go over to West Africa, where they used a sacred glass bead called an agri bead. This was very scarce in the society, used as a medium of exchange. However, when Europeans arrived, they saw that this medium of exchange could be produced cheaply back in Europe. They were able to flood the West African markets with these cheaply sourced glass beads, and this led to value from West Africa being expropriated to Europe. We've got seashells. Seashells were again a very prominent medium of exchange until technological advancements led to the ease at which you could retrieve them from the seabed. High abundance led to a loss in its value. Let's go even further. We've got cattle and salt. However, they were susceptible to the problem of time. They would corrode and rot. Let's take a look at metals. We've got iron and copper, highly abundant, useful for small transactions. However, they were susceptible to corrosion and so struggled to last the test of time. We've got silver in the first layer of the Earth's crust, very useful for smaller transactions. With only a 5 to 10% inflation rate, it serves as a great medium of exchange. However, an even better medium of exchange is found a little bit deeper, gold. With a 1.5 to 2% inflation rate, gold served as the hardest money ever created. The ironclad rules of physics and chemistry meant that there was never a meaningful increase in its supply. It can't be chemically synthesized, hard to extract, and therefore it served as a great holder of people's value for many, many generations. However, when you give gold to a central entity, like a government or a powerful organization, like the emperors of Rome, there is always a temptation to increase the money supply past the amount of gold that they actually have. We have the emperors of Rome who were guilty of this. Anyone would be tempted by the potential to have that much power. It's extremely hard to resist. They started off with the Aureus coin, which was 8 grams of gold. They clipped it down to 7.2 to increase the money supply. Then came the Caracalla coin, 7.2 grams of gold, clipped down to 6.5 grams of gold. Then the Diocletian coin, clipped from 6.5 grams of gold to 5.5 grams of gold. Then the Solidius coin, clipped from 5.5 grams of gold to 4.5 grams of gold. However, it did serve as the longest standing currency ever, thousands of years. You can see the issue. Any central entity with control of the money supply, there's always a temptation to increase it within the society. The famous gold standard was glittered with wealth, as people would accumulate capital goods, and this led to lifestyle appreciation. There was global peace, there was global trade, and there was a restraint on government spending as they were limited to the low gold supply. It created Bach's Brandenburg concepts, it created Mozart's music, it created Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, and the book quotes that easy money has led to the creation of Miley Cyrus's Twerks. This book also expresses something interesting, as this period marked innovation from 0 to 1. The creation of the light bulb, the creation of the plane, the creation of the wheel, the creation of the car. However, after 1914, we went from one to many. One light bulb to many light bulbs, one car to many cars, one wheel to many wheels, one plane to many planes. I thought that was quite interesting. Okay, quick timeline breakdown. 1914, the gold standard ends, paper issuance of money to create scale. Britain had the world reserve currency. It was centralized by banks because no one person could have control over that power. In 1960, the US was declared the world reserve currency by major economies around the world. A lot of gold was concentrated in the US central banks. President Richard Nixon came along and said, okay, we're going to stop the dollar convertibility to gold. This led to an increased money supply because there was no gold ceiling anymore. This led to financially political promises, it led to more conflict, and it also led to an increased money expansion. Let's look at 2 founding principles of economics. We've got Dr. Keynes, the founder of the Keynesian School of Economics, where fractional reserve banking is encouraged. An increased money lending leads to a more buy now, pay later society. We also have the Cantillon effect, which is where the early receivers of the increased money supply are the greatest beneficiaries. Let's go over to Karl Menger, the founder of the Austrian School of Economics. Predictable, constant money supply. Interestingly, this is the foundation of Bitcoin. Hard money that can hold its value can lead to increased capital investment and also lifestyle appreciation. I'm going to tell you a short fishing parable. Linda catches fish for 4 hours with her hands. Henry catches for 8. Linda uses spare 4 to build a rod. Now she catches same as Henry in 4 hours with rod. Henry catches for 8. Linda uses spare 4 to build a boat. Catches a wide variety further out in 4 hours. Henry catches for 8. Linda builds a team with spare hours. Henry continues to catch fish for 8 hours with hands. Linda represents these gold blocks. She's able to accumulate capital goods through investment in the future because her money is going to hold its value over a long period of time. Whereas Henry is more focused on today. He's more focused on now because the money that he holds may not be able to hold its value through the test of time. Let's take a quick look at what is Bitcoin. Before Bitcoin's birth, all payments required an intermediary. Digital objects aren't scarce. They are easily replicatable and need verification. Bitcoin was born under the anonymous polymath creator Satoshi Nakamoto. He codes 21 million Bitcoin into the Genesis protocol. The protocol begins and can't be reversed. Bitcoin becomes first verifiably scarce digital object, a distributed peer-to-peer network. Anyone can run the Bitcoin network ledger from a personal laptop. No single point of failure. All network participants connected by common ledger. All members verify successful Bitcoin transactions, the creation of truth. Consensus decide if transaction A has sufficient Bitcoin balance. Nodes compete to group transactions into a block. First node to create a successful block receives Bitcoin reward. Newly mined every 10 minutes. Difficulty adjusted each time. This is proof of work. Mathematical problem used to add new block. Early days you could use a personal laptop. Network has grown to support billions of transactions. A lot of processing power is needed. Large miners. Every 4 years block reward is halved. Last Bitcoin will be mined in 2140. Currently there are 19.74 million out of 21 in the circulating supply. The processing power behind the Bitcoin network at the time of this book in 2017 was the equivalence of 2 trillion consumer laptops, 2 million times more than the largest supercomputer, and 200,000 times more than the top 500 supercomputers. This book questions why government money? Well, your taxes. You open up a bank account with this specific fiat. It's legal tender in the country that you reside. It's backed by gold reserves. The processing power to remove any central bank is at great cost. There are some negatives in this book. Bitcoin's need to be open source and transparent can lead to inefficiencies in its speed. 2. Scaling. The need to increase the block space to increase the speed can lead to a more centralized network, similar to Visa and MasterCard with their centralized Fort Knox servers. 3. Regulation. However, at the time of this book, the ETF products have been approved around the world, including in the USA, for BlackRock and Fidelity. 4. We have irreversibility. It takes 51% of the processing power of the network in order to change anything, which is quite a lot. 5. Security. It requires mining by nodes in order to maintain the network. This book offers a really interesting insight into central banks and banking, where the bank can lend money to the borrower, whilst also keeping it available to the depositor, which in essence is creating money. There's 4 levers that the central banks can pull. For example, they can reduce interest rates, which increases borrowing. They can reduce the reserve ratio, so there's not as much collateral needed to back those loans. They can reduce the eligibility criteria that you would require to be able to take out a loan. And they can also purchase financial assets such as commercial real estate and add this to the Federal Reserve balance sheet. Contractionary policy reverses this, and that's what usually leads to a tightening economic structure. This video simply archives my curiosity as I reflect on the impact that the Bitcoin standard has on my understanding of the world and money. It's simply asking the question of, could it be relevant? Well, based on this research by Safety and Amos, he tries to share the insights of Bitcoin, and any store of value being adopted can be inflated as people try and source more of the value inside if the price increases. That then leads to crashing of the price. Similar to the agri-beads of West Africa, and the rhinestones of Yap. Bitcoin is simply an invention of digital scarcity. Growth in its price is a reflection of growth in the network. The more the price grows, you still can't produce more of it based on its immutability and its finite supply. I asked myself this question: could this video be relevant? And maybe not. We will see how the world changes over the next 10 years. Loganosity is just simply a play on words. My name, curiosity, spliced together to try and archive the interesting developments, innovations, and technologies that are going to be occurring over the next few years. I find that very interesting. If you've managed to get to the end of this video, I appreciate it. I will be making more, and I hope to see you again in the next one. All the best.